Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, hear the plans of police to beat crime in 2012. A thriving black market for prescription drugs, the subject of a police probe. Ahead, the warning to patients over more than 50 drugs. Also ahead, your voter's card is almost ready. Find out when you can pick it up. And we'll tell you what this man was trying to take into the U.S. that landed him before the courts. All those stories and more straight ahead in the Bahamas tonight.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Welcome to the Bahamas Tonight. I'm Keishla Adderley. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news tonight, the 2012 policing plan has been released. The plan is a continuation of last year's, but includes a more comprehensive proposal to give the police even greater power to go into areas where criminals hide and weed them out. The commissioner plans to tap into civic, religious, and corporate Bahamas to create a safer country that we can once again enjoy. Shenique Miller has more on the effort to take crime in hand in 2012.
2011 shook up communities and left too many Bahamian families with an irreplaceable void. 127 murders, the majority driven by the drug culture. Police found young men were the perpetrators of those murders. In fact, these young men fit a general profile: unemployed and not even interested in seeking work. Instead, enticed by the lure of drugs and a lifestyle of crime. The mix deadly and challenging for officers throughout the force. Commissioner of Police Ellison Greenslade.
The vast majority of whom habitually use illegal drugs and abuse alcohol. We also saw the proliferation of illegal guns, which were indiscriminately used by relatively young men who sought to settle their drug disputes and other conflicts using these instruments of death. Further, persons using and addicted to drugs continue to wreak havoc in our communities.
That is why the Royal Bahamas Police Force's policing plan for this year is all-inclusive, taking the advice, cries for more to be done, and recommendations for a solution from every citizen. Greenslade says the fight is not the police's alone, and the answers come only when all government agencies and citizens come on board.
We listened carefully to what our communities were saying. Every same day, as I listened to news reports, I read the newspapers, I took note of what was being said. So did members of the executive management team, commanding officers, and other members of this force. And so in putting together the plan, we wanted to ensure that those views were incorporated.
Now, this six-pronged policing plan for 2012 is quite extensive. There are 38 action points attached, which includes firearms tracing.
And provide the best equipment, training, and exposure to officers assigned to this unit to enable them to be more effective in investigating and interdicting firearms trafficking and related offenses. That is a specific action.
And then there are parts of the plan that may prove contentious, but with 127 murders on record last year, the commissioner and his team are only intent on reducing crime.
Continue to target prolific offenders with a view to arresting them and taking them before the courts. That appears simple, but it's a very important point, because it means that we're going to have to execute warrants on homes, knock on doors at various hours of the day and night, and arrest people. We find that always creates complications. Continue to target prolific car thieves and disrupt their activities at suspected and known chop shops.
There were some bright spots that will only get brighter this year. Those new laws pertaining to possession of illegal weapons are paying off. Greenslade says he and his officers are no longer frustrated over arresting a suspect and having the individual released soon after. Instead, there are now more people behind bars serving time for possession of illegal firearms, something that's sure to cut down on the number of illegal guns on the street. Shenique Miller, ZNS News.
Now, following the unveiling of the 2012 policing plan, Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade officially laid out the crime statistics for 2011. Our Janaea Noel Ferguson was also at that press conference, and she has that.
It's no secret that major crimes increased last year with a record-breaking 127 murders. Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade broke down these numbers and said that the year was extremely challenging and taxed resources significantly. But the detection rate is around 50%, and here's why.
Many of the suspects or persons of interest in many of the murders recorded for 2011 have died at the hands of assailants before they could be arrested and questioned by the police. That, members of the press, is a factual statement.
Also in 2011, 21 murders occurred in July, 16 in March, and the lowest numbers being recorded in October and November. While murders, rape, and robbery were up, shopbreaking was down when compared to 2010.
Despite the increases in the category of murders and other categories for 2011, the overall increase in crime in 2011 is not as significant as the increase in crime in 2010.
Crime statistics from last year have helped them to identify the days when most of these major offenses are occurring.
Most murders in 2011 occurred on Saturdays, 31 or 25% of the overall figure, followed by Sundays and Fridays with 21 or 17% and 20 or 16% respectively. 90 or 71% of the murders for 2011 occurred on the streets, followed by 28 or 22% which occurred at residences.
As for persons being prosecuted, Greenslade said that their relationship with the judiciary has drastically improved.
The person arrested with that gun today is remanded to prison, is tried quickly, and is sentenced and spends the full time.
Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS News.
Officials are looking into the illegal distribution of prescription drugs and the effects they could have on scores of chronically ill patients. Since uncovering an extensive underground market for those drugs, police have joined the investigation and the monitoring of drugs entering and leaving the country. Clint Watson has details.
A drug is a poison in small doses. If used correctly, it will cure you. If used incorrectly, it may kill you.
And that's why the Pharmacy Council of the Bahamas, led by Chairman Philip Gray, is moving to rid the country of would-be criminals who are selling prescribed medication underground. Gray says they've received complaints from industry professionals and the general public of these acts of non-compliance to the law by business operators not registered with the council.
The sale of prescription items with no oversight of a pharmacist is unacceptable. The black market sale of pharmaceuticals is an even more dangerous practice. Such practices by non-pharmacists will be dealt with forthwith and prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Penalties, which include imprisonment or heavy fine. All wholesalers and distributors are also being strongly advised to ensure that who they sell to meets the requirements by law, even if they appear legitimate. Gray also notes that all registered pharmacies should have their license displayed. Authorities suggest that purchasing black market products, especially just to save a few bucks, could prove deadly.
We certainly can control those medications. If there's a recall, we don't know if they actually have the potency that they should have. And there have been several cases in counterfeit medication where the drugs have been laced with cement and other things. So you're putting yourself at danger.
Within its 2 years of existence, the council has dismantled operations of some vendors, but Gray couldn't say with any degree of certainty whether any of the individuals were prosecuted once the matter was turned over to police.
We've gotten several letters of complaint. We believe that some of them are all linked together, so we really want to do further investigation. and we're in the process of doing that.
At the end of the day, you have a responsibility to ensure that you purchase medication from responsible sources and pharmacies like the one behind me. Also, the Pharmacy Council is advising you that if you know of any information or anything that's going on that's unscrupulous or something that raises question, that you should contact them verbally and then follow it up in writing. They'll be on the case immediately. Clint Watson, ZNS News.
The courts have charged 62-year-old Peter Whitehead with making a false declaration to U.S. officers while at the Lyndon Pindling International Airport on December 30th. Court papers allege that while at the U.S. pre-clearance hall at the airport, Whitehead told U.S. officers that he was carrying less than $10,000 into the U.S. However, the Wild Tamarind Avenue, Camperdown Heights resident was later caught with over $50,000 in U.S. currency, according to allegations by police. Whitehead pleaded not guilty to the charge and denied that he failed to declare the money. He was given $20,000 bail. The case has been adjourned to July 20th. Missing persons cases will take priority in the coroner's court this year, that from coroner Linda Virgil. The court is seeking to give closure to bereaved families and allow them to settle outstanding insurance claims. That's according to the coroner. Now, Coroner Virgil says once cases open, the plan is to have them completed within the calendar year. Now, construction is still underway on the facility. However, Virgil noted that despite adverse working conditions, the court was still able to complete cases. That includes 412 sudden deaths between June 20th and December 16th of last year. And while 8 inquests were scheduled for last year, they were adjourned to January and February of this year due to those ongoing renovations. The coroner's court is expected to be back in session on January 23rd.